because the plant thinks it's winter, so it stops growing. It feels like a proud plant parent moment. It's not gonna work, they're not gonna root, they're gonna die. Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma, and today we're going to be talking about the Alocasia Micholitziana, better known as an Alocasia frydek. They're also commonly known as a green velvet alocasia because of their gorgeous dark green velvety leaves. They are so freaking soft. If you like velvety plants, this is a good one for you. Like, just look at these leaves. They look so perfect. I don't understand how they're so perfect. They look like the ideal leaf. I don't get it, but they're perfect. They are a bit more of an intermediate plant. I wouldn't necessarily suggest this plant for beginners. Alocasias tend to be a little bit more finicky and difficult and quite particular about their conditions, so do be aware of that if you want one of these. Probably make sure you're like at least an intermediate plant parent first. These plants are fairly sought after as well. People really love them. I mean, obviously they're gorgeous, but that means that they often have a bit of a higher price tag as well. In order to get a cheaper price, you can get a smaller one and try and grow it big, but beware if you're doing that, they are even harder than the mature ones to grow. So only really go for that if you feel like you can really give it the conditions that it wants. Otherwise, it's probably not worth it. Just save your money and buy a big one. Really quick, before we get into the care on this one, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up down below and comment on other houseplants you'd like me to talk about in the future. And subscribe for more. Also, I have a Patreon. If you like bonus content from me, sign up and you can get that. It'll be really fun. Cool, shameless plugs over. Let's get into the video. Frydeks are not at all drought tolerant. They like their soil to be fairly moist most of the time. I water mine when the soil is dry about 25 to 50% of the way down. Right now, that's about every 10 days, and it is spring. Seeing as the weather has gotten a lot hotter recently, I'll probably have to increase it a bit because it's gonna get thirstier quicker because it's warmer. When watering in the spring and summer, you want to thoroughly soak the soil. I like to water it like a lot, and then I will empty out what's in the cache pot after like 15 minutes. But you don't want it to sit in that water after like half an hour because that can cause root rot, and we don't want that. When the plant stops growing in autumn and winter, which is like dormancy period, you want to cut down on the watering a lot because it doesn't need it to grow. Maybe water when the soil is 75 to 100% dry all the way down. This is just because it doesn't need it as much, so don't give it to it. Easy as that. Bright indirect light is ideal for Alocasia frydeks. They love the bright indirect light, and they can even tolerate a little bit of direct sun if it's like morning sun for like a couple hours. Any more than that or afternoon sun is an absolute no-go because it will scorch the leaves, and we don't want that. So an east-facing window would be really good for these ones because they would get bright indirect light all day and maybe a little bit of sun in the morning. I personally keep mine on top of my IKEA greenhouse cabinet, which is about 4.5 meters away from a southwest window. I would say that is not the ideal lighting for the plant, but I supplement that light with a grow light that's on for about 7 hours a day. So it's getting medium indirect light from like the room, plus good indirect bright light from the grow light for 7 hours a day. So I think it's fairly happy with that. It's still growing, it hasn't gone into dormancy. Too low of light can cause these to go into dormancy because the plant thinks it's winter, so it stops growing. Alocasia frydeks thrive in the warmth. They like to be in a warm area. Their ideal is between 16 and 29 degrees Celsius or 65 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. They really do like that warmth. This one's loving the fact that it is like at least 25 here every day at the minute. It loves it. It loves it. Probably as much as I love it. You want to make sure you're avoiding temperatures below 16 degrees Celsius or about 60 Fahrenheit. That will be too cold for Frydeks and it could cause them to go into dormancy, like it's winter. They're also not very big fans of hot and cold drafts, so avoid putting them near air vents or heaters or drafty windows or things like that because they're not going to like that very much. They also thrive in high humidity. They love it. They just soak up all that nice humidity. Their ideal is between 50 and 60%, if not a little bit higher. I'd say the living room, which is where this one lives, is usually at least 50% humidity. I don't know how it's so humid in there most of the time, but it is. I do have a humidifier, but you know, it's not always on. But that is why I have been able to not have this plant get crispy or brown edges, as those are indicators that the humidity is too low. So if your plant has that, try upping the humidity a bit. You can do so by putting it on a pebble tray or grouping it with other plants, as that will naturally boost humidity, or like me, get a humidifier. You want to fertilize Frydeks once a month in spring and summer, not at all in autumn and winter because it's not growing then and it's probably in dormancy. So only fertilize it when it's in growing season. I always fertilize with half strength fertilizer. Just be careful not to give the plants fertilizer burn. And I use liquid gold leaf fertilizer and I think it has really liked that. I think I've fertilized it once or twice so far this growing season. And so far so good. I definitely have a new leaf on the way. Let's see. It's probably gonna be hard to see in there. This leaf is like pregnant with a new leaf. Unfortunately, that does mean this leaf is dying. It's going a bit yellow. I've kind of had to like stake it up in order for it to stay up. It won't stay up right on its own. I will probably end up having to take this off, but I am looking forward to the new leaf. I'm hoping it's a nice big one again, so that'll be good. Well-draining soil is a must for Alocasia Frydeks. They probably want their soil to be at least 30% perlite even, because that's going to allow for really good drainage. Orchid bark would work as well, but they really do need the good drainage of the soil. Even though they do like to stay quite moist, they don't want it to be a super compact, heavy soil. It's a balance. It's always a balance. They do like to stay a little bit root bound, so don't repot until you see obvious signs of root boundness. That's not a word, but you know, root boundness. Some signs of root boundness are growth slowing even though it's getting like ideal care, or in the spring and summer, roots coming out of the bottom of the pot through the drainage holes, or it drying really quickly, like you're having to water it more often than you previously would have. So keep an eye out for those signs, and that's probably when you want to repot. When you do repot, you want to make sure you're giving it a pot with drainage holes. As you can see, I've got drainage holes there, and some roots coming out the bottom, which is cool. I mean, not enough to repot yet. I especially don't think so because the growth isn't slowing. I have a new leaf on the way, so I'm not too worried about it. It doesn't look root bound, like the roots don't look like they're spiraling. I think they're just trying to reach for a little bit of extra water that might be at the bottom of the pot. When you repot, you also want to make sure you're not going up too big in size. You only want to go up one pot size, which is usually about 2.5 centimeters or an inch bigger. Otherwise, it's too much space and they're not going to like it as much. So, one size. Division is the best way to propagate Alocasia Frydeks. Like all Alocasia, they're not going to be propagated from leaf or stem cuttings. It's not going to work. They're not going to root. They're going to die. So don't cut plants like that and try and propagate them. You want to divide plants to propagate them. When you're doing so, you want to cut in the middle of a rhizome, because that is how the different plants in a pot are connected to each other. So cut on the rhizome, and then you can repot them separately. You could also grow these from bulbs. If you want to know how I grew, not Alocasia Frydek, but I grew Alocasia poly from bulbs, and it's the exact same process. head to the link in the clickable I button, and there's a video on how I did that, which is super fun. So definitely worth trying it at some point because it is an interesting process and it's cool to watch. Alocasias grow from bulbs. It feels like a proud plant parent moment when you can grow a plant from a bulb. So give it a go. Unfortunately, alocasias are toxic to humans and cats and dogs and horses. I don't normally talk about horses, but you know, they are toxic to horses, so keep them out of reach of your horse, and your kids and your pets. If eaten, it can cause oral irritation, swelling, pain, irritation, vomiting, all those nasty things, so keep it out of reach of pets and children because you don't want them eating this. So that is it. That is all you need to know about the Alocasia frydek, this gorgeous thing. Just look how pretty it is. I love this plant so much. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up down below and comment on other houseplant things you'd like me to talk about in the future, and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye! It didn't really work, but you know, it's fine.